America's restaurant industry is cracking in ways nobody saw coming. The menus are smaller, the tables are emptier, the receipts are higher, and behind every cheerful commercial trying to convince you everything's normal, there's a balance sheet somewhere screaming for help. The crash isn't loud, it's quiet, creeping, hollowing out dining rooms one booth at a time. Chains that once packed their parking lots on Friday nights are now running on coupons, skeleton crews, and corporate denial. Inflation hit them, labor costs crushed them, delivery apps gutted their margins, and customers, tired of paying $18 for reheated food, simply stopped showing up. Welcome to the list no CEO wants to be on. The top 5 restaurant chains collapsing faster than anyone expected. These aren't tiny franchises. These are giants wobbling on legs that suddenly don't look so steady. Chapter 1, TGI Fridays, the party that finally ended. Step inside a TGI Fridays in 2026, and you can almost hear the echo of a past life. The clinking glasses, the packed bar tops, the Friday night chaos that used to spill out into the parking lot. Now the lights feel too bright, the energy feels too thin, and the only real sound is the low hum of a chain pretending it's still relevant. The red and white branding, once synonymous with fun and frenzy, now hangs in dining rooms where the booths sit mostly empty and the bartenders polish glasses out of habit, not necessity. Fridays wasn't just a restaurant, it was a cultural phase. It was the we're going out tonight place of the late 90s and early 2000s. A pre-social media social hub where coworkers gathered for drinks and families came for sizzling plates and desserts too big for one person. It thrived in an era when casual dining was an experience, a place where the night actually started. That era is gone. The economy shifted, dining habits changed. People aren't celebrating small things the way they used to. They're budgeting, they're cooking at home, they're ordering cheap takeout instead of paying sit-down prices for meals that don't feel worth it anymore. And TGI Fridays never figured out how to evolve. You can see it in the dining room. A bar once overflowing with happy hour crowds is now 3 people nursing drinks like they're trying to make them last. The menu, once comically huge, is trimmed down because half the items weren't even selling. Servers walk with that half-busy, half-bored pace that comes from working in a restaurant, living on memories instead of customers. And behind all this is the financial chaos. Franchisees are shutting down stores by the dozens. International locations are fading. Debt piles up. Sales slide quarter after quarter. Leadership changes more than the menu. The revamps, the new logos, the new dishes, the desperate marketing pushes all feel like band-aids on a wound nobody wants to admit is fatal. There's a sadness to a TGI Fridays today. It's the feeling of watching a party end long after everyone went home. The chain is trapped between who it used to be and who it's supposed to become, and right now it's neither. It's just open, running on habit, a theme restaurant skeleton wearing the clothes of a once booming giant. The middle class that filled these tables, they're stretched thin. Corporate workers who grabbed Friday night drinks, half are remote now and don't go anywhere. Families who ordered sizzling fajitas, they're calculating grocery prices instead. TGI Fridays isn't collapsing because people stopped liking it. It's collapsing because the world that loved it doesn't exist anymore. And so the chain limps forward. The music's still playing softly, the lights still glowing red, the staff still waiting for crowds that aren't coming back. The party didn't end suddenly. It faded slowly, painfully, until one day you look around and realize the only thing left is the bar sign glowing over an empty dining room. Next, Outback Steakhouse, the casual dining empire losing its bite as America stops paying steakhouse prices. Chapter 2, Outback Steakhouse, the casual steakhouse. Losing its bite, walk into an Outback Steakhouse in 2026, and the first thing you notice is how quiet it feels. Not peaceful quiet, empty quiet. The kind where you can hear silverware clinking from across the dining room because there aren't enough conversations to drown it out. The Aussie-themed decor still tries its best to sell the fantasy, but the reality sits heavy in the air. This place used to be packed. Families waiting at the door, server sections overflowing, bloomin' onions marching out of the kitchen like a culinary parade. Now, you could hear a steak sizzle from 2 booths away. Outback wasn't just a restaurant, it was the suburban steakhouse. The middle-class reward system system the "we're eating good tonight" celebration spot. But the problem is simple, brutal, and inescapable. The customer's Outback depends on don't exist the way they used to. The middle class is shrinking, disposable income is evaporating, and nobody wants to drop $23 on a steak when groceries already cost more than rent used to. And beef prices, they're a financial nightmare. Everything from the ribeye to the sirloin costs more. The chain either raises prices and drives customers away, or eats the cost and drives itself into the ground. Most chains can pivot, Outback can't. Steak is the whole brand. There's no backup plan. The cracks show everywhere. Menus trimmed down, portions nudged smaller, steaks cooked inconsistently because the kitchen runs with half the staff it used to have. Servers stretched so thin they barely have time to smile, much less upsell dessert. Even the dining room tells the story. Booths with worn seats, carpets that have seen too many double shifts, a bar where two lonely customers stare at muted sports. Highlights: country music humming through speakers like it's trying to fill space that people no longer do. Behind the scenes, franchisees are suffocating. Rising rent, rising labor costs, rising food costs, and customers demanding cheaper everything. Corporate tries to spin it, not menu innovation, streamlined operations, exciting brand refreshes, but those are just buzzwords for "we are trying not to die." Because the truth is this: Outback is losing a war it didn't know it was fighting. A war against a changing economy, a war against cheaper competitors, a war against delivery apps that turn dining out into a luxury, a war against younger consumers who don't care about themed steakhouses. Even longtime fans feel torn. They want to support the place they grew up with, but the math just doesn't work anymore. A family of 4 can walk into Outback and walk out wondering if they accidentally financed a small boat. Outback didn't become worse. America became poorer, and a steakhouse built for a financially healthier country now feels like it's standing in a future where fewer and fewer people can justify the check. Outback isn't collapsing because the food changed. It's collapsing because everything else did. Next, IHOP, the breakfast legend running out of customers, time, and syrup in a world where people aren't eating out at 3 a.m. anymore. Chapter 3. IHOP, the 24/7 breakfast icon, running out of batter, walk into an IHOP in 2026. And it feels like stepping into a dream you only half remember. The blue roof, the syrup caddies, the laminated menus with too many pictures. It all looks the same, but the energy is gone. The late night crowds, gone. The post-church rush, thinned. The college kids stacking pancake combos at 2 a.m., replaced by empty booths and a server wiping the same table for the 4th time just to feel busy. IHOP built its empire on a simple formula: comfort food plus low prices plus open all night. But the world changed. The formula didn't. And that's how a breakfast giant ends up wobbling. The first blow was the pandemic, which destroyed the 24/7 culture IHOP depended on. Then came inflation, which made syrup-soaked comfort food feel like a luxury instead of a casual treat. And now, breakfast foods, once the cheapest items in the kitchen, cost a small fortune. Eggs, meat, flour, dairy. Everything IHOP needs to survive is more expensive than ever. To cope, they raised prices, but that broke the spell. You can't charge $14 for pancakes and expect people not to notice, especially when they can make the same meal at home for a fraction of the cost. Inside the restaurant, the decline is visible. Tables sit empty during hours that used to be packed. The soda machines hum in lonely corners. The once iconic stuffed French toast is gone because supply chains made it too expensive. Staffing feels thin, not because managers want it that way, but because labor budgets have been slashed to the bone. Some IHOPs don't even bother opening late anymore. Some don't bother opening early. A few keep bankers' hours, an insult to the 24-hour soul of the brand. Meanwhile, franchise owners are collapsing under the weight of rising rents, rising food costs, and a shrinking customer base. Many locations quietly shut down. Others limp along with reduced hours, minimal staff, and menus that have been hacked apart to save money. IHOP is stuck in a dangerous identity crisis. It's not cheap enough to be a budget restaurant. It's not nice enough to be a premium restaurant. It's not fast enough to compete with drive-thrus. And it's not cool enough to attract younger diners. The chain that once fed America at all hours is now struggling to stay relevant in a country that no longer eats the way it used to. People work from home. People sleep earlier. People cut back on eating out. And nobody is driving across town for a stack of pancakes at midnight anymore. IHOP didn't lose its recipes. It lost its place in the culture, and now the dining rooms sit half-lit, smelling faintly of syrup and nostalgia as a breakfast empire slowly runs out of batter. Next, Panda Express, the fast casual powerhouse suddenly stalling as costs rise and competition crowds in. Chapter 4. Panda Express, the fast casual giant suddenly stalling. Walk into a Panda Express in 2026, and at first glance everything looks normal. The orange chicken glistens under the heat lamps, the fried rice steams in the pan, and the line snakes forward with that familiar fast casual rhythm. But look closer. The cracks are right there beneath the shiny trays and corporate branding. The dining room feels thinner, the kitchen staff moves with a tension that wasn't there before. The portions look a little lighter, the prices feel a lot heavier. Something has shifted. Panda Express was the unstoppable machine of American mall food courts and suburban plazas for decades. It thrived while others fell. It rode the wave of fast casual dining better than almost anyone. But 2026 hit the chain with a perfect storm of rising costs, shrinking budgets, and new competitors that figured out how to sell the same flavors for half the price. The empire didn't crumble. It stalled hard. The first blow came from inflation. Chicken prices soared. Sauce ingredients became more expensive. Rice, oil, vegetables, everything went up. Suddenly that cheap orange chicken bowl didn't feel cheap anymore. Customers walked in craving comfort and walked out doing mental math about whether a $14 lunch was worth it. Then came the TikTok era copycats. Asian-inspired fast food exploded. Mom and pop shops offering $9 bowls. Food trucks selling fresher stir-fries. Hybrid chains churning out viral menu items. Even gas stations started carrying knockoff orange chicken. Panda's once unique flavor profile became common, and in a market where price matters more than branding, common loses. Inside the stores, you feel the slowdown. Trays don't empty as fast. Food sits longer under the lamps. Employees talk quietly about hours being cut. Managers stretch thinning crews across peak times like rubber bands about to snap. Even the food quality shows the stress. Orange chicken that used to be crispy now tastes a little soggier. Fresh vegetables arrive less often. The chow mein has days where it looks tired. The portions shrink just slightly, enough for regulars to notice. And behind it all, the business model strains. Panda Express relies heavily on malls, a category collapsing in real time. Many once busy food courts now look like abandoned airport terminals. A chain built around foot traffic is now facing a nation with no feet in the building. Standalone stores fare better, but even they feel the pressure from delivery apps draining profits with fees that slice margins razor thin. Panda tried raising prices to compensate, but raising prices only pushes more customers away. A death loop disguised as strategy. What makes Panda's decline surprising is simple. Nobody expected the giant to wobble, but even giants get tired when the entire economy turns its back on eating out. Now the chain finds itself in a strange position, not collapsing, but stalling, not dying, but drifting. Too big to pivot, too corporate to adapt quickly, too expensive to be fast food, too simple to be premium. Panda Express is learning the hardest lesson in the restaurant world. You can only thrive on one signature dish for so long before the world changes around you. Next, Buffalo Wild Wings, the sports bar empire losing customers, wings, and relevance as America abandons dine-in culture altogether. Chapter 5. Buffalo Wild Wings, the sports bar that got benched. Walk into a Buffalo Wild Wings in 2026, and the first thing you hear isn't cheering, it's echo. The TVs are still everywhere, each one blaring a different game like a sports-themed fever dream, but the energy that once made the place electric has drained out. Tables sit empty, bar stools stay unclaimed, a server stands by the soda machine scrolling a phone because there's no one to serve. The smell of wings and beer still hangs in the air, but it feels like it's searching for a crowd that moved on. For years, Buffalo Wild Wings thrived on one equation: sports plus beer plus wings prints money, but everything in that equation broke. First, Wings became absurdly expensive. A chain literally built on chicken wings got sucker punched by supply chain chaos. Prices skyrocketed, shortages hit, and suddenly the cheap wing night that made the chain famous turned into a financial disaster. B-dubs either had to shrink the portions, raise the prices, or switch to cheaper cuts. All bad options that made loyal customers feel betrayed. Then beer prices jumped too. With inflation hammering distributors, the $3 pint became the $7 pint, and nobody wants to spend that much on beer at a chain restaurant that already jacks up menu prices. And then the final blow, the culture shifted. Gen Z doesn't flock to sports bars. Millennials stay home. Remote work killed the after-office crowds. Streaming fractured the audience. People stopped watching sports together. They watch alone, on phones, in apartments, in silence. A sports bar without sports culture is just a noisy restaurant with overpriced wings. Inside, the decline is painfully obvious. Bar sections that once overflowed with fans now look like abandoned airports. Servers wait half an hour between tables. The manager does laps around the floor with that "please someone walk in" expression. Promotions like buy one get one wings show up not as celebrations but as distress flares. And don't forget the franchise drama. Franchise owners are bleeding money. Some stores can't pay rent. Others quietly shutter with a paper sign that says "closed today," even though today lasts forever. Buffalo Wild Wings is stuck in a brutal identity crisis. Too expensive for casual diners, too corporate for sports purists, too slow for delivery culture, too loud for families, too old school for younger generations. Even on big game nights, the crowds don't look like they used to. People watch from home, surrounded by $12 worth of grocery store wings instead of dropping $45 for an order at B-dubs. The chain that once felt like America's sports living room now feels like a relic, flashing highlights to an empty room. Buffalo Wild Wings didn't collapse because it lost the sauce. It collapsed because it lost the moment. And in a country where dining out is becoming a luxury and sports culture is splintering, a giant built on wings, beer, and crowds is learning that the hardest way possible. The TVs are still on, the wings still fry, the bar still glows yellow, but the roar of the crowd, the soul of the brand, is gone. And without it, Buffalo Wild Wings is just another chain wondering how to survive a future it was never designed for.